Okay, I think I started the recording now. Yep. So let me just call one of us to just give us in few sentences. I don't want you to spend more than 60 seconds. What were the things, if you were to summarize everything about the G factor, what would you say we learned in the first 6 days of week 1? I'm going to call Putzman. In your words, how will you summarize week 1, G factor? Putzman, are you there? Putzman, you're muted.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Good evening, sir.
Yeah, clearly now.
Good evening, sir.
Evening. Go ahead.
Okay, for the week 1, I will say I've
You can
learned.
speak up so that everybody will be able to hear you.
Okay, for the week 1, I would say I learned about the growth mindset. That part actually get clear to me better than the way I knew it before. And then I know that the difference between fixed and the growth mindset. So one can even change from fixed to growth. And then also I would say about the last time I asked about time bound, and you table it down for me about the short term, medium term, and long term. That really clarified something to me about that particular time bound, because I owe the let me say wrong impression about it before. So when you explain that to me, so I guess it's more clearer and better. So thank you, sir.
Okay. So that's what you got from week 1. Okay. No debunking. Let me call one more person. Yeah, Bolale. What did you get from week 1, from the first 6 days? Share with us. How will you summarize everything you learned in week 1?
Good evening, sir. A brief summary of what I've got in the last 6 days. I think it started with understanding the need for growth, then purpose discovery, then self-awareness. So I think the last week has been all about knowing yourself, understanding your purpose and your passion, your core values, the things that drive you, then growing into that self, and that then setting goals, setting smarter goals, evaluating it after a particular period of time. So basically just empowering oneself.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent. I like that, and that's exactly what I want to hear. What we did throughout last week was, like I mentioned, laying the ground, preparing the ground, and we tried to ensure that we have a formidable ground that we're going to be building on. So from this week, we'll start building. It's like we've laid foundation. You are now on the first course. So we'll start putting the building blocks. We'll start putting all the necessary building blocks that will enable us to get to the, what's it called now, to build an edifice, as it were, which is you. So the edifice is you, nothing else. So we're going to see how this edifice is going to turn out. Okay, let me share my screen, and then we're going to get started with what I've got for you today. Just a minute, if you can see my screen. Yeah, so can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
Yes, sir.
Good. We're going to start looking at effective communication from this very session, and is going to be the first building block, communication. I could have talked about the concepts that encapsulate communication, but I just had to pull out communication itself from that basic concept, which we are still going to be looking at holistically afterwards this week. But I just had to pull it out so that I'll be able to have a real focus on it before, so that we don't just slip some things out of it by the time we start talking about the whole concept, which is emotional intelligence. Because effective communication, one of the skills encapsulated in emotional intelligence. So you don't want to miss the session on EQ. Okay, so what exactly are we, because effective communication is a very, very broad subject. I've tried to see how to narrow down what will be most helpful for you for this journey out of the entire concept of effective communication, right? And I'll be focusing majorly on active listening and articulation, which simply means the act of hearing clearly, audibly, and the act of speaking, okay? The act of speaking eloquently. And you see how this thing pans out into something that reasonably will give you leverages and help you to achieve success in life. We're going to be watching 3 short videos, and I want you to watch carefully because there are certain things I'm going to build based on this. Again, because of the shortness of time, I try to see how some of these videos are going to help us, streamline conversation. And then I would like you to also share so that I'll be able to understand specifically what your pain points are. Part of some of our submissions, I could see that some of us are just like me before. I mean, when I was sharing a bit about myself, pretty much earlier in the sessions last week, I told you that part of me that is introvert and all of that, and how I was able to break through from there and now becoming a international public speaker, right? So let's quickly watch this and then we'll come back to talk. Oh, sorry. I made a mistake in sharing again. I'm supposed to share with my sound so that you'll be able to hear. So please confirm if you can hear it now.
We all use words and language every day to interact with people at work. But do we really communicate effectively? Effective communication can be broken down into 3 parts: listening, understanding, and responding. Let's look at these one by one. Listening involves hearing the words that are being said, taking in nonverbal cues such as body language and facial expressions, plus paying attention to voice modulation. We then move on to the next stage: understanding or giving meaning to what we have heard. Most communication breakdowns happen at this stage because we often misunderstand or misinterpret what is being said. When we make errors in interpretation, we are likely to respond incorrectly as well. For example, your boss asks you if the task that he assigned to you has been completed. If you interpret that as the boss blaming you for not completing the task, you are likely to respond with anger. However, if you interpret that as your boss wanting to just know the status of the task, you are likely to feel less angry and defensive. How we interpret what we hear is affected by the thoughts that pop up in our minds when we are listening. At Way Forward, we help you catch these automatic thoughts so you can reduce communication errors and be more productive at work. For more information, reach out at www.wayforward.co.in.
Okay, so that's the first one. And I'm sure that it was quite very concise and straight to the point, talking about your disposition in communication. So that's the first lesson, that's the first thing you need to understand when it comes to effective communication. You in the communication, because many a times we get confused when we need to deal with people in communication. We always think it's about them, right? It's first of all singular, which is you in the communication. What exactly is your disposition? What is beating you? What are you dealing with at the time when you receive a message that requires a feedback? I'll still come back to some of the basic things about communication 101, but I just want you to see some of these critical things so that when we begin to discuss, we don't lose them out. Watch this second video.
Approaches to communicate.
Oh, sorry, something popped up. Okay.
Communication. A man is sitting across the table from his boss. His boss is explaining the task to be done. Click each scenario to view what happens. Scenario 1. Sanjeev, collate the quarterly sales report and send it to me by 2. I'm in a hurry here.
But sir, it's already 12. It will take me more than 2 hours to collate it. And I need to check it thoroughly before sending it to you.
Listen, I know that, but this is urgent. Don't you think I would give you more time if I could? Just get it done, please.
Yes, sir.
Scenario 2. Sanjeev, how are you placed today? Anything urgent?
I'm working on that proposal you gave me to work on yesterday.
Ah, good. I have something more urgent. The quarterly sales report. I need it by 2 o'clock.
But sir, it's already 12. It will take me more than 2 hours to collate it. And I need to check it thoroughly before sending it to you.
I know. But this is urgent. I need to send it to the head office.
I'll try to finish it, sir.
Tell you what, let's set a 2 o'clock deadline for the report. Come in with it and we can check it together. But your lunch will have to wait.
That's okay, sir. Lunch can wait. I'll get this back by 2.
Same task, same deadline. What happened next, do you think? The transcripts of the conversations in both scenarios are given here side by side. Certain portions of the conversations have been highlighted. Click each set of highlights to understand the two different styles of communication in the two scenarios. In the first scenario, the boss jumped straight to the point without any consideration. In the second scenario, however, the boss asks about his employee's current tasks and his availability. In scenario 1, the employee is immediately defensive, saying why he wouldn't be able to do the task in the given time. In scenario 2, the objection is the same, but the employee is more receptive. In scenario 1, by now the employee is probably feeling a sense of being treated unfairly. In scenario 2, however, the boss recognizes the challenge and makes a compromise where he is part of the solution. By mentioning the missed lunch, the boss shows that he also thinks about his employees' comforts.
For such many more effective communication learning, visit www.withopenminds.
Okay, so let me just quickly summarize what you've watched in the first 2 videos so that I can establish the concept of effective communication for you. Number 1 is the disposition I mentioned to you about, right? So please hold it on one hand. The second video talked about approaches, okay? You understand your disposition, which is intra, which is personal. Then the other one is for you to now understand the other person. Okay, the other person can be a group of people and can also be an individual. So you need to also understand their own disposition. So that's why when you come to Communication 101, the first thing you will understand has to do with the different, the system itself, system of communication. What does this system entails? What does it look like? You have the sender of a message, okay? Then you have the message itself, you have the receiver, and then you have the feedback. Meaning that a communication is not complete until when the sender sent the message and the receiver received the message sent, and then finally give us send back or give a feedback. So when you look at the conversations that ensued in these different scenarios, you see that the two people, especially the second one, you see the two people having conversation, the boss and then the uh, uh, um, the other worker, which you will call the um, subjugate. But sometimes you need to understand that in every conversation, that is exactly what I play as well. Okay, you have someone who will always feel, who can definitely be you as well. You feel you have a superior stance, you have a superior disposition over the person that you have to communicate or you are communicating with, right? Whereas the person can as well have the same disposition, like, okay, this person is my uh, subjugate, or the person is junior to me, I'm the boss, or the person, I'm more older than the person, especially in our own local orientation here. You feel, oh, this person is younger to me and I'm older to the person. So that is the kind of uh, um, that's the kind of disposition that people naturally bring into communication. So how do you then deal with this? Either the disposition is placed in a formal setting or informal setting, whether it's placed in a professional setting or in a social setting, is the same principle that applies. Okay, the same principle. And that's why the issue of active listening and right articulation comes in. Because many times, if you receive a message with premonitions, if you receive a message with preconceived ideas, there is no way you'll be able to receive the message acceptably. You will not receive the message with a high level of understanding. And what you don't understand, you will wrongly interpret. And if at all you're going to give a feedback, the feedback will not be an acceptable feedback. So you see how communication usually go wrong. So it's not just something that you just think that, oh, these people are not really communicating. It's simply because the whole act, the whole system is faulty. So we are going to be looking at how to correct this because this is what it's all about. And the correction starts from you. Because like I said, the disposition is first about your own disposition before the disposition of the other people. And then when you're not dealing with a complex situation where you have groups of people you are communicating with, like you are all here listening to me, right? I need to be sure that I can easily help that each of you are going to be having the right disposition to receive whatever it is I'm communicating with you and then be able to get a feedback. Yes, Dr. Folashade, you can please unmute and let's have you.
Um, I think all of this is very, very interesting and very useful too. But I think I had a question. I guess based off of culture. So, for example, in the U.S., at any given moment, you are in the same room with different faiths and different cultural backgrounds. And so, knowing what I know about Nigeria and just other cultures, how does this, I guess, effective communication work in a setting where how can I say this? Work in a setting where maybe you're not even encouraged to communicate, or where communication is expressed solely one way, especially if the other party is in a position higher.
Okay. So that's what I was trying to explain, that every communication is set up like that. I can give you several examples that you'll see that there's always the one that is a senior and the one that is a junior. Even if the gap is so infinitesimal, you can't communicate on the same level with the same disposition. There's not going to be any communication established. It's either one is the boss, seen as the boss, and one is seen as the subordinate, right? That's how communication is usually set up. And that's the orientation, regardless of the culture, that's the orientation people come in. And when I'm talking about the structure of the disposition of individuals, I'm not saying maybe they are age mates, age group, working class. No, 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 no. I'm talking about the mindset, the orientation. Imagine we are all here, we are seen to be contemporaries, right? But we are not all equal, right? As it is in this session, I'm to be seen as the mentor. All of you are to be seen as the mentee. And even at your level, you are not all the same. You are not all equal, right? If Dr. Folashade is to communicate with Favor, for instance, right? By the time you begin to talk, because both of you will have done some level of introduction and all of that, the next thing that will happen is your orientation will quickly change. You're like, oh, I'm kind of older than this folk, or I'm more experienced than this person. And that will then tune the kind of conversation you are going to have, which naturally may not go in that direction. So, I mean, it's just the way we are wired as human beings. That's what I'm talking about. And no culture, no social human being is exempted from this kind of switch. Is a normal switch in all communication. I mean, I've done a lot of international public speaking. I've trained a lot of people from diverse culture and social groups. And it's the same experience I have from time to time. I'm moving, I've prepared myself, thinking I'm not going to have a fridge fright. By the time I get there, seeing my audience, I have a switch entirely because I must have a command of my communication for my communication to be effective. Otherwise, I will lose the entire audience if care is not taken. So it's usually like that. But it's simple if it's one-on-one, because sometimes you can manipulate yourself in order to be able to manipulate the other person. But it's deeper than that, and we're going to get there to see other tweak and other skills by which you can get the best of every communication, whichever way it turns. Either you are the one that is seen as a subordinate, or you are placed as the boss in that conversation scene or scenario. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yes, yes, it did. Thank you for explaining.
Okay, thank you. So I mean, um, there is also the place of language barrier, which brings in some kind of introversion into communication, especially if there is a critical barrier uh, uh, um, in terms of articulation. We are still going to get there so that you see some scenarios. But let me just quickly close out on these fundamental principles around the system, that we should always be prepared, regardless of where you find yourself, to communicate on, or whatever circumstance or situation you are to communicate. You should always be prepared that whichever of the side you are placed, either as the subordinate or as the boss, you need to ensure that there are certain things that you should embrace as your core value. You see, so I want to tie it down to the foundation, which talks about your core beliefs and your value system. Your communication should not be taken off the stream of your value system, should not be taken off tangent from your core beliefs, regardless of who you are relating with or who is relating with you. And this is what I mean. I mean, your basic core value should include mutual respect. Your basic core value should include upholding righteousness, being graceful. And I mean, I can go on and give you examples of things that you should have settled within yourself as part of your core value system, even if they are not major core value system, but should be things that will emanate from your core value system. So imagine when you want to talk to someone, because respect is mutual. The same way you're going to respect a elderly person, the same way you are meant to respect a younger person. Okay, you are not supposed to violate the right of even a 2-year-old when you are communicating with a 2-year-old, because they all have ways by which they receive messages, either visually or non-visually. So you need to accord every human being with respect, and that's the dignity of humanity, right? Then you also talk about the way you project your intentions, right? The way you project your intention in communication. These are fundamentals, because sometimes they say, "Oh, you didn't get what I mean," or "You you misunderstood me." Yes, you are going to be misunderstood because your projection is totally wrong. What you meant is not what you have communicated, and whose fault? You understand? Sometimes I will have to, I mean, it's just repeat yourself. You see that this is exactly what you said, but this was not what you meant. So how come you said what you never meant? So that means there is an internal disconnection. There is between your heart, your mind, your brain, and the gates, your mouth gates, meaning that you don't just open your mouth and say whatever needs to come true. You should have filtered through your value system and your core beliefs before anything comes through your mouth gate, right? So that you don't become, I've forgotten the name they call people that speak out of their senses. You don't become people like that speak out of their senses. And more so, it now becomes a practice. So these are critical principles that you need to guard against. Then you now move into other level of having a command of your communication, having a command of your communication. And that's where active listening comes true. There's something about active listening that will help you build not just a strong, but fruitful relationship with people. And this is what I mean by that. Relationship, I mean, for every relationship, you say that communication is the lifeblood. Okay. When you remove effective communication from every relationship, that relationship ceases to be. Whatever type of relationship you're thinking about. For instance, if all of you stop communicating with me in this program, that will be the end of these sessions. Trust me. I mean, I keep calling. I'm just the only person talking to myself. Nobody respond, no feedback. Do assignment, you don't do assignment. At the end of the day, I will just come out and tell you, you know what? I think I'm the only person that is here. Every other person is just non-grata. So let's just end this thing. It's the same thing that applies at all levels in life. When you're in a relationship, either marital relationship or you are in a working relationship, you are in a religious relationship, whatever social relationship, and you want to establish communication, whatever it is, if there is no evidence, I'm using that word now because this can happen in spaces, right? In time nodes, like you have intervals or repetitions of experiences of maybe silence and then punches of active articulations and another time silence. So once you have a repetitive point of no communication, then that relationship ceases to be. I remember the very first group of people I was meant to mentor. This was like about 6 years ago. That was when I started my journey in professional counseling. I mean, I've gathered those people, pour so much on the table with them, and lo and behold, I just discovered that I was just talking to myself all the way, as much passionate as I was, just speaking, talking, sharing. By the time I asked the question, guys, what have I said? Everybody was just looking at me. You can easily tell the frustration all over me. I mean, imagine you've been speaking for a long time and you just pause and you're like, guys, what have I said? And nobody can retract anything. I'm like, God, it can be that very, very frustrating, right? And it's also important for you to know that communication is not only verbally expressed. You can have non-verbal communication. So when I'm talking about silence, dead silence, I'm talking about non-communication. I'm not just saying someone not speaking, like silence. Someone is not talking verbally. Someone is not showing evidences of non-verbal communication, then that means that there is no blood in that particular body, in that life, right? And you need to begin to address fundamental and root causes, okay? So that's another issue you need to understand. So active listening is very important. And we all have different bandwidth of our listening capacity. And this is something else that I want to really, really sound extensively to you, because if care is not taken, if you don't understand the personality type of the individual disposition you're in a communication with, by the time you begin to talk and the person has a long or a broader bandwidth of active listening, you might get easily thrown off, right? Some people can just be in your presence watching you while you do all the talking because you are extroverts or you're an extroverted person. And by the time you've said almost 1,000 sentences, because you don't have the command of the communication techniques, then at the end of the day, the person responds and you just say A, and that's it. And that A summarizes everything you've been saying, and you're like, wow, what's happening here? But to the person sees that I'm a genius. Everything you said in 1,000 words is just a word, right? 1,000 sentences is just a word that summarizes everything, and that suffices, and that's it. So you see the different level at which people are made, the different level at which people come in with all of themselves, their personality, all of these things at play. Another extreme that you find in active listening is when someone has a very slow level of assimilation, because active listening also has to do with level of assimilation. Like you have to make a lot of repetition before the person can grab. You know, like the way I've said so many things now, we watch 2 videos. There are some people that they can't watch this 2-minute video and then understand it at one glance. So they will have to watch the 2-minute video like 3 times before they can really decipher and interpret what exactly is being compared to that video. You know, so sometimes you need to understand all these nuances of humans, because people come in different shades and forms, different personality types. And that's why one of the assignments I'm going to be giving you from this conversation today on effective communication is for you to conduct personality type assessment on yourself. You may not be able to do it for someone else, but when you're able to understand for yourself, you can easily, you know, by the time we look at emotional intelligence, you can use your EQ level to be able to, at least within 10 to 15 minutes of conversation, as you grow in EQ, the higher you go, getting to up to 75 to 80%. When you have conversation with someone between 10 to 15 minutes, you'll be able to tell basically, intrinsically for your effective communication, what personality type the person upholds, and then you know how to approach the person, right? So that's that. Then the other extreme is articulation. Articulation talks about how you express yourself, okay, either eloquently or non-eloquently, expressly or non-expressly. And again, this is also tied to personality type. There are some people that they have so much that they can say, but they would rather allow their words to be few. And this is one beautiful thing about communication. Communication is not about too many words. The fact that someone is very expressive and is sanguine and can talk so much doesn't really mean that the person is actually making sense of everything he or she is saying. Doesn't really mean that the person is actually communicating. So one of the things that you see as the basic principle in communication has to do with clarity of purpose and simplicity of the conveyance of the message. You don't need to complicate like Obayagba. I don't know how many of us know Senator Obayagba, the man from Edo State. How many of us know him? Hello, are you following through? How many of us know Senator Obayagba, Patrick Obayagba?
Yes, I do. I do.
Okay, what do you know about him? Can you share with us? What do you know about Patrick?
Actually, I usually watch his video. The only thing you just keep hearing is just some jargons. I don't know kind of where you could just watch for most of the times.
Did I hear
And
you say jargons? Is that the word you use?
This is what I'm looking for. I can't really wrap my head around it. This was it
No,
called.
no,
I don't know.
I get you. I'm just trying to affirm that is that the word you use, jargons? Because I'm not sure whether
Yes,
I heard you correctly.
yes, that's what I use.
So you can imagine, I had never seen him as someone that uses jargons as words. I mean, his words are jargons, even though when you hear him speak eloquently, sometimes you can't just phantom his composition of sentences because he uses complicated words that you just have to go into the dictionary to. Some you don't even find in dictionary because they are concocted words. You know, if you know what I mean by concocted words, they are words that they are modification of the simpler meanings that could have been inferred. So sometimes it developed inferred words and then tried to colloquize them. So I mean, you have this kind of personality. So don't be surprised when you're having conversation and you see the type of Obayagba. How are you going to still comport yourself to have meaningful conversation? So you see sometimes when you see on-air personalities who are interviewing him and they are confused, or they themselves will even be laughing, which is quite embarrassing. I can't imagine me communicating with someone the best way I know how to communicate, and the person is laughing simply because the person cannot understand how and why and the ways of approach by which I'm communicating. So it can be very, very embarrassing sometimes. So you need to have a command of it, and that's why the aspect of articulation is very, very important. And articulation says the principle of articulation says that you convey your message in such a way that you are not overhead, you are not underhead, and you are just simply heard. Okay? How you want to do it, either you are speaking in vernacular terms or you are speaking in any clear, simple language terms, make sure that you are just on point head. You shouldn't be overhead, you shouldn't be underhead. Overhead in the terms of people just begin to take a lot of too many inferences because that will polarize whatever it is that you are saying. And then people can now begin to subjectivize whatever you are communicating to them. So you have already make no meaning out of your conversation. I mean, out of your communication or what you are conveying. The message is already watered. Likewise, if people underhear you, like they hear you incompletely, they just heard, maybe you said 10 things and it's just only 2 things they heard. It's a problem as well. So the assignment or the task that everybody has each time you want to communicate, because sometimes it will have been better that you don't even say anything and let people infer through other means of communication. I mean, you don't say things verbally, you can act, you can dramatize, you can visualize several ways. You know, you can choose other method or approaches of communication other than speaking that you will now speak and people will hear you or overhear you, or they just make no sense and misinterpret, or they misconjugate whatever it is that you have communicated with them. So these are all the serious assignments and tasks that you have each time you want to open your mouth to talk to people, right? Then the other aspect, which for me is also very, very important, that many people miss out in, many people miss out in, has to do with the feedback, okay? And it is, especially for us here in Africa, is one of the terrible things that we have adopted in our culture. Very, very, very terrible. Even if the feedback is not going to be a complete loop, there has to be an instance. There has to be, a way by which we just embrace to ensure that there's always a feedback. And there are several ways by which you can communicate your feedback. It's just like someone sending you a mail and you never send a reply. That kind of a thing. And I mean, we are all guilty of this thing. That's why I said it's more of a cultural thing. And that's part of the reason why, we need to commit to growth. We need to keep learning on how to, I mean, I'm also guilty of it. So it's not like I'm saying this to indict any one of us. I'm also guilty of it. And I'm, working towards myself on a daily basis to see how to also improve, on my feedbacks. Because when you have received message, when you have received communication, it is expected that you will find a way, no matter how it is, find a way to communicate your feedback. And you know what it means when you give a feedback? Number one, it means that you either understand or you did not understand the message you received. In fact, the first thing is you have actually ascertained to the sender that you received the message. That's the first thing. So that means that the communication is complete, and then you can say it is effective, because effective communication is complete communication, okay? Whole communication, 100% communication. So the second thing is now that you are trying to interpret what you understand and communicate your level of understanding. So the person can be sure. And if that is not established, then the person will insinuate your understanding. The person will assume you understand. So imagine, many of us have been relating based on assumption that, oh, you understand, you understand. Some will even give excuse for others that, oh, no, don't worry, you understand. You understand. So it's based on assumption that people communicate, and that can never be an effective way of communicating. In a position of leadership, is the same thing. They assume that we all see and understand what is happening. So there's no need for president to always have a chat with us. There's no need for them to communicate progress with us. Or you are running a project and you assume the key stakeholders should understand, and they to understand when you send your report. You don't need for them to send you an acknowledgement and all of that. So it's always good that we cultivate that habit of giving feedback, even if it's going to be a simple acknowledgement. And you know, one of the things I'm now doing now, starting with my means of communication, if it's to be my email, I've set in my email, except the one that intentionally, activates that don't send a prompt response. So some of you, you will notice that all the things that you have been sending, I think it's only about 2 or 3 people that have not acknowledged. It's intentional because I want to drive this point home. And that's the next question I will now ask you. Okay. How did you feel each time you send all those assignments and you never receive a response from me? Anybody? I want 2 or 3 people to talk, and I want you to be very, very sincere. Please, you have to be very, very sincere because we are here to help each other. So each time I keep telling you, you must send it, and your own response is, okay, you have received, you have heard me. Now you send your message, you send in your assignment, and that's just the end of the communication. How do you feel? Do you think that should be the way the communication should have ended? If not, how do you think we should have continued the communication? Please, I need 2 people to respond. I'm going to call name. Let me see who is there. Yeah, Demilade, if you can hear me. Okay. Utsman, you've spoken. Don't speak yet. Favor has not spoken. Benro has not spoken. Demilade has not spoken. So Demilade, can you speak? Okay. What about you, Susan?
I can hear you, sir. My network drew me
Okay.
out.
Did you hear my question?
I didn't get the question, sir.
Okay. I said each time I asked you to submit your assignment, and all of that, and you end up submitting your assignment, and that's it. You didn't hear anything from me. How do you feel? Do you think that's how the whole conversation should have ended?
Sorry, I didn't get it again. My network is throwing me off course.
Wow. Make sure you listen to this message over again. Watch the video.
Okay. Yes, sir. I will.
Bero, what about you? If you have listened to everything I've said up to this point, there are still some things I want to, so I don't want us to waste time. There are some key things that I need to share with you before we close. Key things, and there's this one last video that I'll also watch. So please, let me hear you. How do you feel?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, actually,
Good
the
evening.
first time I submitted the assignments and I didn't see your expense, I actually thought maybe it was not delivered or so. Until I think second or third class later, when you now said you are receiving some assignment, blah, blah. So, however, prior to that time, I felt uncomfortable because I expect kind of response like acknowledgement that you received the assignment.
Hmm. Very sincere. I like that. Interesting. Felt uncomfortable. Can imagine. Felt uncomfortable. So why didn't you have the audacity to communicate that to me that, how come you asked me to submit the assignment, I submitted, and even a simple acknowledgement, you didn't even send back to us, or you didn't send back to me? What's happening? Is it that you didn't receive my... See, this thing is very, very, very practical. Trust me. And this is the same way you are meant to interact with people out there, either with your boss or with your anybody. Trust me. And until you get to that point where you begin to grow that grit, the determination that you want to effectively communicate with people, it doesn't just bounce on you by the virtue of you hold a position or you have some deadlines. No, right? It's a skill and it works at all levels, right? It works at all levels. So sometimes I use automated system to do that. Sometimes when I send a mail, you will see that for this session, that's why you will see it all of, because it was intentional. Ideally, when I send a mail to you, you have seen that there will be a demand for response. Okay. Sometimes I will even put it as the body of the mail and tell you, kindly advise or kindly revert to me. Okay. I mean, there's something that will prompt you in case if you don't know, because I will give you that benefit of doubt that you may not understand what effective communication means, so that you don't keep me in limbo and keep me waiting to hear from you. So I will prompt it in the body of my message, so that by the time I don't hear from you within 24 hours, and let me tell you how this thing works for effective communication. For unofficial duties, for unofficial relationship, let's say social relationship, blah, 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 and all of that, you have between 3 hours and 24 hours for you to prompt demand for response. Like the way I'm talking, blah, 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 blah. If this session is supposed to go for a long time, blah, blah, blah. If I didn't hear from anybody, I would just assume, okay, it's okay. In the next 3 hours, you just see me back on you, right? In another few hours, you see me back. Once 24 hours elapse, professionally, you can call it off, that communication is non-existent, right? So that is the discipline. If it is official, it increases the timeline, the tune, the spread or the allowance you give for someone to respond and give a feedback extends beyond 24 hours. So sometimes we have it between 48 to 72 hours. So sometimes when someone is making a crazy demand, so sometimes because I know these things, when I want to send a mail to someone, I know I would have given the person an excuse, except if it's an SOS, if it's an emergency, which you will now rate in your email as top urgent, and you must state it in the body of your mail. Treat these as top urgent, treat these as critical or top important. I mean, there's a way you will communicate and state the scenario in such a way that they will treat it as high importance. Or some of our Outlook mails have those ratings of email you are sending out: high importance, important, and just simply not important, and all of that. So you can create it. Otherwise, when you send a mail and someone receive it, you need to give them benefit of doubt or space in time between 48 and 72 hours. And when you are now planning yourself in communicating with people, these are things you put into cognizance so that you don't become a nuisance within. So when I see people, the way they demand for response and feedbacks, I know that they are nuisance or they lack effective communication skill. So these are part of the things that you need to understand and then put all into perspective by the time you are communicating with people. Okay. Time is fast spent. Before I will just do the video as the last thing that I'm going to do, but let me quickly share this with you. There are certain skills I would like you to learn. There are quite a lot of skills around effective communication skills, which I told you, many of them are subsumed within emotional intelligence, but just put this down because it's going to help you. Writing skill is one of the very, very important communication skills. Let me just, in just a minute, share one of the things that writing skill can do. I remember when I went for service many years ago, That's my NYC service year. One of the things that helped me, because at that then I was still trying to get out of and become a bold and confident speaker and all of that, I had this Gothic way of writing. Anytime I want to write and embold my name, legibly, there's a way I used to write with Gothic lettering style and all of that. That was what stood me out in the midst of over 1,000 COP members that came to serve in the state where I served. All of us, they gave us files. So the way I engraved my name, I stylishly wrote the name, screen it, shaded it, did all those stuff and all of that. And that was what they saw when they were picking and selecting new set of people that they wanted to give assignment to among all the 1,000 people. They picked mine and then two other people and singled us out of everybody and said they are going to give us a special assignment, which we did for a whole year, right? So writing skill is very, very important. So don't tell people that, oh, your handwriting is not nice, so it doesn't matter. It does matter a lot because you never can tell, how you're going to be communicating with good handwriting to people. Then the other thing is the non-verbal communication. I won't overflog this. I've said it. Don't just. I learned this in a very hard way when I was doing my EMBA, executive MBA in Quantic, Washington, many years ago. Also, I learned this from a Taiwanese friend. Some of these emojis, emoticon that we use on social media. Sometimes we don't know the meaning of some of them, right? you know, and there are non-verbal ways of communicating. Someone is happy, you are showing happy moods, you are showing different moods. The same way I've been seeing Dr. Shade use some of these things. So that when I see them, I'm always scared because I'm like, I really don't know what some of these things means. Kind of, you have to be very careful. And it's the same way when people are in your presence, the way you gesticulate, the way you comport yourself. There are a lot of things across culture. There are some culture that when you frown your face, it may mean something to them. You never can tell. Sometimes in culture, when you do some kind of green or some kind of signage, it may mean something. So you need to be very careful, So you have to be culturally aware in order for you to be able to embrace the right visuals or kind of disposition you're going to put out there when you are non-verbally communicating. The other one has to do with compassion. Then we have empathy. I've talked about active listening. There's also trust and respect. I've talked about this as well. Then you also have connections, okay? And these also speak about personality type. By the time you conduct that personality assessment test on yourself, you'll be able to determine some of these attributes that you have within yourself, which you may not know, but you need to realize whether how much empathetic are you, how much sympathetic are you, how much compassionate are you, do you even have any connections easily with people, or you just need to forge connections, because these are part of things that will help you. And finally, there is this common C's. You might want to take it down to, in Communication 101, they will tell you this. There are 7 C's in communication. So just to summarize everything I'm saying, number 1 is your communication has to be very, very clear and succinct. Your communication has to be very clear and succinct. You don't need to use too many words. You don't need to say too many things. Sometimes repetition can be very boring, okay? So you need to be careful so that you are mindful of time as well. And avoid overloading people with too many messages because they may not be able to digest them. The second has to do with having a very short and simple way of communicating. Okay, it has to be very concise. That's the second C. It has to be very concise. It has to be very short and straight to the point. Then the third one has to do with concrete. Your communication has to be very authentic. You don't have to go plates. You don't have to speak because you want to impress people, like the way Obayagba used to talk. He would look for, I used to think that Wole Soyinka is supposed to be the one doing what Obayagba does, because this is someone that is a guru in English language. But yet, you see Wole Soyinka, even though when he uses some words too, you just have to go inside the dictionary to go and look at how the adjective is not conjuncting and all of that kind of. So, but sometimes you have to be mindful of your audience so that you know that whatever it is you are doing, you are not using ambiguous words. They don't have to carry dictionary or lexicon and start looking at the meaning of those words before they can understand what you're trying to articulate to them. The fourth one has to be with the correctness of your message. Don't communicate falsehood. Never communicate falsehood. There are some people that they are just, agents of lies. Everything they say, you just have to verify. Go and verify. Don't be that kind of a person that in every communication, someone must verify. You don't want your personality to be like that. You must always ensure that your communication is correct, your facts, is correct, and you are always speaking the truth. Then you need to be considerate. That's the fifth one. You have to be considerate, and I've told you about it because two personalities or multi personalities are involved, either within the same culture or cross culture. You have to be considerate and be mindful, and because you have to be responsible and accountable for your message. So you have to be considerate in what you say and how you say it. And let me mention that, for every effective communication, there is the why, there is the how, there is the when, and there is the what. Why are you communicating? Why are you sending that message? It must be purposeful. You don't just talk because you need to talk. It's better you shut your mouth than to be speaking simply because they put you inside the matter, right? So make sure it boils down to your purpose. Whatever it is you're saying should be purposeful. Don't speak because you need to speak. Then when the timing, sometimes you just need to be quiet and wait for the right time to talk. I do this a lot when it comes to timing. I mean, I take my time because I don't want to be misheard. I don't want to be misunderstood. I don't want to miscommunicate. So I look for the right time. I look for the right moment, and I'm not usually pressed. Of course, I may not be always correct in doing this, but it has helped me over the years so that when I communicate and someone has to, fact checked and all of that, I have not spoken out of context. I can always defend, go to any length to defend my means of communication. And thank God with technology now, sometimes I even use AI to verify my communication before I send. When I want to send mail, I follow up, put it on AI engines and find out whether the way I've constructed my English and all of that, so that someone will not be replying and be telling me that I'm supposed to not say this or, so I mean, these are ways by which we can enable effective communication. Then the sixth one has to do with completion. You don't communicate and convey incomplete messages. I mentioned that in passing. So don't just talk halfway. Don't just talk, absently. Make sure you correctly articulate your thoughts and simplify it in such a way that you convey the right message completely, so that the audience can grab everything. Then the final one is the respect, which we call courtesy. Okay, that's the 7C, courtesy. You have to be courteous whenever I mean, respect is always mutual, regardless of the age. Like they say, communication is not by the age of Methuselah. You won't say because you are as old as Methuselah, so you can talk to anybody anyhow. You are the boss. You can talk to anybody anyhow, or you are the baby of the house, so you can disrespect anybody. No, no. So respect is mutual, right? If you don't respect someone, regardless of your attainment in life, sometimes when people are rich, they have power, they have certain level of possessions, they allow those things to get into their mindsets and affect, or erode their sense of respect, mutual respect for people. Such people, they usually end up getting disrespected or dishonor, so you don't want to find yourself in that position. So be polite, be sincere. You have to also, don't allow prejudice to set in. And these are all the things that respect accords. And you need to ensure that you reflect your value. Courtesy also demands that you always reflect your value in your communication. There's no better way to be courteous. There's no better way to uphold courtesy and respect other than you projecting your value from the way you communicate with people. Trust me, if you're able to do this, you will have gone a long way establishing yourself as as someone who is given to effective communication. Finally, let's watch this video.
Hello, and welcome to the Communication Olympics, where kids are tested to see who can speak up and listen well. I'm your host, Walker Walter.
And I'm your host, Melissa Marissa. First, we have John Rigby. Last year, he famously took out his cell phone while Frankie Richardson was telling him about how her cat, Mr. Pickles, had diabetes.
It's like he didn't even care about what she had to say at all.
We have our judges scoring our athletes on a scale of 1 to 10. This is the listening event, so judges will be looking for proper active listening technique. Judges are looking for eye contact and nodding. You also have to give someone undivided attention, meaning you're actually trying to understand what the person is saying. Asking questions and making acknowledging statements also leads to a high score. Let's take this to our woman on the ground, Carissa Callahan. Carissa?
John is engaging in conversation with his friend Valentina.
So Steph just left me. I didn't have anyone to see the movie with, and she didn't even say sorry. Like, we've been friends since she moved in across the street. Yeah, it's like really messed up.
Love that question asking. He would have gotten a higher score for restating what Valentina's original concern was and asking a clarifying question, but overall it shows he's engaged.
I have like 3 hours of homework and 2
Oh no, it looks like a really, really cool caterpillar is climbing pretty close to John's sandwich. Look at those colours. This is a very cool caterpillar. Let's see what happens.
But now she's acting like we don't even watch music videos together 24/7.
Oh, hey, cool. Look at this caterpillar.
Hey, look at what?
He wants to talk about that very cool caterpillar because he's no longer interested in the conversation, but also wants to be a good friend to Valentina.
Hey, you know, that really sucks. Have you tried telling her how you feel and that you're upset?
I haven't. It's pretty cool of you to hear me out like this. Let's get to Mr. Roberts.
And he recovers. John clearly did the right thing by not getting distracted, even if he was getting bored. Then he nailed it with a great introspective question. Judges give it an 8.2. He was docked a few points for looking away, and we could have seen John stating the concern back to her. Back to you, Melissa Marissa.
Wow, that really was a great caterpillar. Next up, we're looking for effective communication style.
Like how someone sounds when they talk?
Definitely not, Walker. Judges are looking for assertive communication, which means being direct and honest about what you want without using any put-downs or making someone feel bad.
That's what I meant. Ahem. Today we're looking at Natasha Stevens. Let's jump right in as we see her being pushed to take money from her parents' money jar in the kitchen.
Dude, the money's right in the kitchen. Take $10 so we can go get gulpies at Fasty Mart.
I don't really want a gulpy.
Yeah, right.
Uh-oh. We know Natasha. She's not being direct enough. She doesn't want to steal from her parents. She does really want a gulpy.
If we were at my house, I'd do it.
Okay, you know, maybe they won't notice.
This is classic passive communication. Scores very poorly with judges. Wait. It looks like Natasha might turn this around because she's literally turning around.
Dude, you know what? It's not right to steal from my parents. It's not worth losing their trust. I don't know if you can come over if you're going to act like this. And by the way, I always want a gulpy.
Okay, I hear you.
I haven't seen a comeback like that since Skip Levinson in the 68 games. Perfect example of assertive communication. Judges give it an 8.9.
She started out passively.
Is anybody hearing
She
anything?
gave in and said yes, even if she didn't want to.
Maybe she can try yelling at him next time to make him feel bad for stealing.
That's what we call aggressive communication, and it too scores poorly with judges. When you're responding out of rage or fear, you can hurt someone's feelings and even violate their rights. When she turned around, it was classic assertive communication. She was direct about how she felt, even if it was hard to say.
That's all the time we have today.
I'm Marissa Melissa.
Okay, so I'm sure you follow through and you see that. I mean, the summary of this particular video is talking about, the kind of influence that you allow on your personality that can make or mar your communication style. So you need to be careful, meaning the association you keep, the level of your friendship, the kind of people that wage influences over you can actually affect the way you communicate to determine whether it's going to be effective or not. Because sometimes we just allow undue influences over you, you know. Oh, doctor, you said you didn't see it. Are you serious?
I didn't see or hear. Did anyone else see or hear?
Yeah, I
Please,
can
can
see.
someone confirm?
Yes, I did. I
Yes,
saw
we
her.
saw that.
Sorry, did anybody see or hear what I played?
Yes, I
Yes, sir.
saw
I
the
saw the video.
Oh, doctor,
the
I
video was
guess maybe it might be your network. Don't
Okay,
worry. I mean,
I'll watch it.
I'm going to, yes, I'm going to upload this and also share the link of the video when I
Okay,
upload.
thank you.
Yes, so because I would like you to watch over this. And by the way, I mean, like I said, it's about communication. Even the previous materials and the slides that nobody had ever asked for them. So I believe you don't need them. That's why. And again, it's intentional why I've not been sharing them. But I don't know why I just mentioned this now. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. There's still so many things I can say about effective communication, but like I told you, I streamline it to just these two things: active listening and articulation, because I know there are areas where many people struggle. You know, many people struggle about these two key areas. So, if you have any question or any comments or contributions, or there are particular things you want to share as regards some of this stuff that I've shared with you. Anybody? See now, so let's practicalize this. So
yes,
you
sir.
cannot walk away without giving me feedback.
Actually, I have a question, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can. Go ahead.
So, just concerning this feedback thing, I could remember when I was working. Actually, I was an intern. I was doing my CWS then. CWS, yes. So my boss just came into the office and was like, "Can we give him feedback on his attitude towards us? How he has been acting up, everything about him. Can we give him feedback?" But in Nigeria, we'll be like, can we even give him a feedback? Like saying the truth to him. Even if we feel if we feel like saying it to him, we'll be like, will he not? Won't he hold any grudges against us saying it? So how can one give such a feedback in that scenario?
Okay, so this is how, I mean, I used to be like that before. I mean, there are many times I even give myself excuses why I shouldn't give a feedback, because I'll feel, oh, I mean, the person should understand now and all of that. I don't necessarily have to talk. I don't necessarily have to reply and all of those stuff. But when I started running, I mean, as an entrepreneur, I began to see the importance. I mean, you imagine you delegate tasks to people you are going to end up paying for delivering services, and they carry out the task, they don't come back to report. Because feedback, I want you to see it as a means of reporting. Maybe because we just say feedback. Let's use the word reporting. Someone has communicated an information to you, you need to report back. That's why I told you that is a relationship that has to do with a boss and a subordinate at whatever level you want to look at it. Even if it's just a thin line that is drawn between both of them. They might be contemporaries, but there's always that thin line that separates the boss and the subordinates or the subjugates. So that's how it is. So if you have the understanding that you need to report back, no matter what, even if it's just going to be, oh, I've done the task and that's it, just to affirm and acknowledge that you understand the message that was communicated with you, because that's the basis of reporting. That's the basis of, and if there are actions that need to be taken as a result of what you have done, your feedback or your reports is going to convey that as well. And then the communication continues. It doesn't end there. For instance, all the messages, all the assignments you've been sending, blah, blah, blah. If I'd been replying you, chances are that you would have taken further action on some of the things you've done. Because if I am to reply some of the things you've sent in, there are some responses I'm going to send back to you that will require you to go and take further action. So you see now that it's very important to always give a feedback, because at the end of the day, the overall thing is for you to achieve perfect success, okay? And also to improve on connections, That your boss that you're supposed to give a feedback and report for, there's no way it can build confidence in you that you know what you are doing if you don't always come back to acknowledge that you have done what he asked you to do, or this is the outcome of what he asked you to do that you have done. It's as simple as that. Did you understand?
Yes, I got that.
Okay. So please, let's make it, like I said, it's not nature to us. So that's why we need to learn it as a skill, effective communication. We need to learn it as a skill. Without demand, it is expected that we always give a feedback or report. Any other comments or question? Any other question or comment? Which one?
Yes, sir. So there's also this thing that I observed too also. Actually, it's not common in this part of the world. Actually, in Africa, or I don't know, let me say it's in Nigeria. When you want to someone want to download app from Google Play Store, there's this thing that I just observed. Someone pointed it to me that if you in this part of the world, I guess in Nigeria, don't usually give feedback or give them like feedback on their apps and all that. So I try to imbibe that in my action, actually in my dealings. And then next time when I want to download any app now, there will be the same kind of app, the same app with the same function, or similar features. But the first thing I look at is number of downloads, and I go to the feedback, so as to know the one that I'm supposed to like download that will meet the requirements I'm in need of. So with that too, I think that's one importance. That's one importance of giving feedback.
Yeah, I agree with you. So in business, when you have this effective communication put in place between your B2C or in B2B, that's business to customers or business to business, okay, you can have, especially for product development, when you have feedback from your customers or from your business you're delivering your services to, it will enable continuous improvement on your product, because you determine the level of satisfaction or other comment that they have over your product. So it will enable continuous improvement. You can create your communication diary through those feedbacks that you collect, and then you can use the data, for your developers to be able to improve on the next version, and all of that. So, it's just the same way it works in businesses that you see that it works in our day-to-day relationship or day-to-day communication and connections. You need to, because the more you give a feedback, the more you help the other person and yourself. Okay. Otherwise, whatever information you have to yourself as the outcome of your experience interacting with the person remains with you, and you don't blame the person if the person doesn't change. So that's how important it is to ensure effective communication. And you're not saying it because you want the person to accept. Don't forget what I told you about blind self, review self, and the hidden self, known self, or known self. Don't be surprised if the person you are giving feedback to is resistant to whatever information you are giving back. The person may even say that it's a lie or it's not accepted, but you have communicated and that's it. So it's left with the person to deal with. The same way when you submit your feedback to all these app developers, out of 5, you selected 3 stars. So they may feel bad. It's supposed to be 5 stars now. We knew what we've done. But you've given your feedback, so let them deal with it. Because your feedback is based on your experience. You see, so that's how it is. Okay, I think we should round up now. The only person, I don't know whether Bero spoke. I'm not sure. I think it's only Bero and Timlani that didn't speak. Now look forward to you speaking tomorrow. Okay, everyone, we'll end here. Believe you caught something in class today.
Dr.
Okay.
Bolahan, did you give
Yeah,
any
that's all.
did you give any
Yeah.
sort of assignment or did I miss that?
Yes, I give an assignment. I said I'm going to share a link with you where you will conduct
yeah.
a personality assessment test on yourself.
Yes, yes.
So
Thank you.
yeah, so you just send me the results at the end of the day. So please make sure you conduct it. So taking, okay, so we end here. Catch you again tomorrow. Oh, Susan, yeah, please go ahead. I can see your hand up. Can unmute, Susan. Or is mistake?
No, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir, for the lectures. I really want to apologize for not being present all this while because of my work and network glitches. I will do better going forward. And also, today's class was very impactful. I'm someone that is very temperamental, but with this effective communication and everything you've broken down, sir, I know I'm going to work better on my communication skills, even at my workplace and among my colleagues at work. I will do better to be a better person. Thank you so much, sir.
Awesome. So it's because of you that I put up the page. I was going to talk about it, but I didn't get there. So the truth of the matter is, whatever your pain point is, you can always overcome. Always. I'm telling you, if I could overcome my introversion, I'm very, very sure that you can overcome your temperament. Uh, I'm going to share a book with everybody. Make sure you read it. Why You Hack the Way You Do by Tim Lahali. If you have read it again. Because when you do the personality type test, you still need to determine the particular dominant personality type based on Lahali's model to know whether you're a sanguine, phlegmatic, melancholy, and all of that. So you know the ones that are your dominant traits, your dominant attributes. So once you know your dominant attributes, you know your weaknesses, you know your strength. I mean, it settles it. You subdue your weaknesses and you don't allow your weaknesses to become a threat to yourself and others. You rather leverage on your strength, and that becomes your point of communicating with people. You don't communicate based on your weaknesses to people. Like you're always angry. You don't always have to show that. I mean, it's you are just someone who is given to anger. No, let people see your good side of you, so that will be what, if I thought they even give a feedback, that's what they're going to, you know, give to you. That's why I was telling you the other time that if I never told you that I stammer, you won't know, which up till now I still stammer sometimes, and that was only the time if I'm very, 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 very deeply, deeply angry, and I can't just control my emotion. So you'll see by the time we talk about emotional intelligence, because you see how you can control your emotions and some of the skills. There are a number of skills that you can do. I remember there was a time I used to use what's it called now, Rubik cubes. Anytime I'm angry, I'll just be rolling the Rubik cubes. For me to be able to calm down my nerves. So I mean, it's something you can always work on yourself, and you will surely get through. Okay. Okay, let's end here so that we can just go and rest and sleep. But all these things, if I forget any, please feel free to remind me in the WhatsApp group so that I can share. I have more than enough books for you guys to read if you are willing. More than enough books I can share with you for you to read. But you have to be willing to read so that I'm not just placing books you won't end up reading. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
sir.
Bye.
Mhm.